Greetings to you all who have joined us already, and those on Facebook. Welcome to this policy dialogue of Surplus Trust. Today we are looking at the Auditor General's report of 2019, that is Zimbabwe's Auditor General's report. Chiri, who has been doing a fantastic job over the years, and with little or no acknowledgement in terms of the requisite attention that should be paid to the reports. We as Surplus Trust 3 years ago held a policy dialogue on this subject with respect to the earlier reports, and we're very disappointed to see that the response, the attendance was very limited, was very small. Whether that reflected on the extent to which Zimbabweans have become immune to scandals, immune to the abuse of public finance. I hope that with this report, 2019, that will have changed immensely. So my job today is simply, as convener, is to thank all of you who have joined us so far, and also to introduce the moderator, Simba Makoni. Makoni is introduced there in the flyer as former Minister of Finance of Zimbabwe, 2000 to 2002. But is more than that. I've known Simba since our young days. We're much older now. He's a public intellectual, a thought leader, one of the leading thought leaders in this country, a businessman in his own right, a farmer. And clearly, I couldn't think of a better person to moderate us, especially given his experience as a former Minister of Finance, but also as a person who has been very intimately connected with our politics, our economics, our debates, not only on this platform, but elsewhere. So, Simba, I call upon you to take over from us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivo. Good afternoon, colleagues. I am honored and delighted to be in your company this afternoon, and hopefully to facilitate our conversation or conversations. I hope the network today is unusually unstable, and I'm blinking out almost every 2 minutes. So we agreed with him that every time I blank out, he will step in. Please do I am terribly sorry. I was that my network is extremely unstable today. And so when I do blink out, please, Ibo, just step in and let's proceed so as the conversation is uninterrupted.
That's fine.
We have a very important subject today. And as Ibo says, it's not new to us, but every Auditor General's new report brings out new surprises for us about the extent of the, I don't know whether to call it incompetence or inability to manage our public resources to satisfaction. Let me share with you without diminishing
Sorry about that. We'll wait for Simba to come back. I think he's making an introduction, which is very important. And then when he's finished doing the introduction, he will ask each of the panelists, beginning with Rusty, to introduce themselves. Simba, are you back?
Let's proceed where we are. Each of the panelists will introduce themselves in not more than a minute. And after that, we will go to the presentations in this order. Rusty Markham, not more than 30 minutes. Brian Dube, not more than the other panelists. Dube, Joe, and Tafadzwa, not more than 20 minutes. And then we will have a fulsome discussion thereafter. So kindly take.
I think Rusty, you can come in.
Okay, thank you. I am Rusty Markham. I'm the Member of Parliament for Harare North, which covers Borrowdale and Hatcliffe. And I serve on various committees at Parliament. Thank you.
Honorable Dube. Honorable Dube.
Thank you very much. You hear me now?
Can hear you, but we are in the darkness. Can't see you.
I don't know what happened.
But we can hear you.
Oh, it's okay.
You, right?
Dube Brian is my name. I am Member of Parliament for Goreben constituency and the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee.
Thank you. Janet.
Thank you very much and a very good evening to you all. My name is Janet Joe. I work with the Zimbabwe Coalition on Debt and Development. I'm a human rights defender. I'm a political scientist by training. I'm a social and economic justice activist by passion. I just love Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Tafadzwa.
Yes, good evening, colleagues. My name is Tafadzwa Chikumbu. I'm the Acting Executive Director for Transparency International Zimbabwe. I'm an economist by profession, but I've worked in the development sector for over 14 years, working on the budgets, the Auditor General's reports. So I've done a lot of analysis around the issue. So I'm quite happy to be here.
Thank you very much. Brief and precise. Rusty, over to you now for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Simba. I would just like to explain what I believe is a problem is that the Auditor General is producing these reports year in and year out, and we end up with the same nasty surprises all the time. And a lot of it comes from the difference between condonation of debt or the condonation of expenditure, but we are tending to be told way after the event. And so I'd like to highlight today what I see as a problem, and I'm going to give examples. These are general issues covering the Auditor General's report, because I know that the chairman of the PAC will go into some detail of what's happening there. I'd just like to take, and I'd like to point out before I start, I'm a very simple man, so my logic will be simple, and I will notify where I'm getting my information from as we go along. But the first thing we must remember is that section 1193 of the Constitution, as well as 299, all work on the accounting of money coming in and the condonation, etc., etc. And even it also covers, in terms of section 3071 of the Constitution, what to do when we have an emergency and we use funds. And the bottom line we must all remember is that everything has to be reported within 60 days. So I will, with that in the background, the Auditor General has done the work over many years, and I will show you through this presentation. What happens now is we've got a big cloud of debt hanging over us, and there's more to come. And that's what's worrying us. And it's all right that it stays in the papers, and it's all right we talk about cartels, we talk about corruption, but what are we doing about it? And the issue is people are starting now to drag their heels. We wouldn't have this problem if everyone reported as they were supposed to report under all the finance acts when they report 30 days or 60 days or quarterly or biannually. If this was done and was done in the past, we would be up to date. And that is the fundamental problem we have, is this is not being done. Now, as a result of the first report in August 2009, the first report was the compliance of the Finance Ministry, and then we went on to the Reserve Bank. As a result, they are starting to do it, but it's showing us horrendous issues. So let's just start with the recent document which came out, well, when I say recent, this year, the 2020 Annual Public Debt Bulletin, which was issued by the Minister. There, the bilateral and multilateral debts that we have are, from the ministry are $8.4 billion. Now, the Reserve Bank have a debt there as well of 2.1 billion, giving us a total foreign debt of 10.5. That's accepted. The domestic debt is very small, and that is a factor of the people involved in lending the money taking a bath, mainly because of the exchange rate, which over the years moved from 1 to 1, it started at 2.5, and the official one is about 85 or a bit more. The budget for last year showed that if you took the 10.5 billion, that was 71.2% of the GDP. So we're just under what we're allowed to borrow. But when you look into the public debt bulletin, there are two issues there. And the first one is the Reserve Bank, the issue of the Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank have two sums that they are auditing at the moment. Okay, and that's 2.9 billion of what they call blocked funds. Now, that has not been explained to anyone in detail. Now, the audit is happening on these block funds. I presume it means that the money has been stopped until the audit is done to see who's being paid what. But there's also a 379 million what they call a current running debt with the Reserve Bank. I presume that's work in progress, etc. But that has not been fed back. Now, the issue here is it is pointless telling us that there are these issues with the Reserve Bank and they don't bring back the detail, the vouchers, who's who, and explain it both to Parliament and also because this is unauthorized. It has not come before Parliament. So that is a major issue. That is the first point I'd like to raise on the debt issue. The second issue, which is by far the biggest, and we must pay attention to this, is the Finance Adjustment Bill has been tabled in Parliament. Now, the Finance Adjustment Bill is a very small document which details over expenditures by various ministries, over 20, in fact, I want to say all, but not quite all, from 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. The total amount of money there, as laid out in the bill, is $9.6 billion of over expenditure over 4 years. Now, the law says this should have been done within 60 days. Well, it wasn't. Now we are being asked under the Finance Adjustment Bill. This is not Finance Adjustment Bill. This is an acquisition of another debt. Over and the top of all the debt we've already talked about. So we got 9.6 billion. So I'll choose two of the biggest ministries. By far the biggest problem is the Ministry of Agriculture, Mechanization, Irrigation, and became Ministry of Lands and everything else. That total debt is 5.2 billion of this 9.6, i.e. 54%. Now, my issue with this is very simple. How could we let it go to that extent? And where did the money come from? Where did the money come from? Now, the Auditor General picked it up, and obviously it's been investigated both by PAC and again by the Auditor General. The PAC are current, and I won't go into it because I'm sure the chairman will cover, is the vote 8 is being debated now, and I believe the one on the agriculture side, the command agriculture side, is about and due to come out. But the point is, we are now talking of a huge sum of money 4 years after the event, 3 years after the event, and 2 years after the event. My biggest concern of the whole lot is if you take the year 2017, agriculture was 2.5 billion over what they were supposed to be allocated. And in 2018, they were 1.7 billion over as per this bill. Now, the issue here is very simple. These huge sums of money, particularly in 2017, occurred at the end of the year. So what that means is we had a new Minister of Finance, we had a new government, but we had the same problem. It didn't change. So why are we identifying the problems, we're not tackling the issues? And the issue is very simple, and that's why we have the Constitution, and that's why we have the Finance Management Act and all these things, and we have these report dates, is so that we can do it. And the duty of Parliament is to be the overseer. We are supposed to have an oversight role. You have no oversight if these bills and these expenditures are not brought to Parliament. And then what happens is, as we get further down the road, we just kick the tin down the road and we don't solve the problem. And then one day we've got to acquire this debt. It doesn't matter what anyone tells you, you have to acquire this debt. And the issue is, it's too late. The second ministry with the biggest portion of the debt is actually the Ministry of Finance. And it overspent by 8.1%. And again, I have the issue of, how can the ministry itself overspend by 8.1%? I don't care what on, but they didn't bring it to Parliament. So what oversight role we have? We haven't. We've got a hindsight role where we have to rubber stamp bad debt, which the people of Zimbabwe end up paying for. And we get all our credit lines cut off. So this is quite a serious issue. I want to divulge into one issue. And I seem to think sometimes that these things are set up. The Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Agriculture when a delegation came into the Public Finance Committee on oral evidence led by the then Perm Sec, stated categorically on 3.1 billion, he did not know where the money was, where the vouchers were, and what. Because the whole issue of command agriculture was being overseen and run under the Office of the President and the Cabinet, and then they get the money, the bill dumped. They are the line ministry. Money should not be going through the Reserve Bank. Money should not be going to another ministry. It should be going through the line ministries. And in this case, this money, which was picked up by the Auditor General, is basically unaccountable. Now, if you look at the latest audit report in Vote 8, and you go through all the questions of the Auditor General, you will see 95% there is no movement. So that is what I'm talking about when I say we are kicking the can down the road. And this is a major issue, because if you accumulate this debt on what I've already told you, 10 plus 2.9 plus 300 plus 9 point, you now start getting a bit of a fright. Probably the most stark of all these is a global deed settlement, which has been signed by the government. They had the ceremony, and it committed us to $3.5 billion. Now, I have a problem with the global deed settlement for one reason, is most people haven't even seen it. Certainly Parliament hasn't even seen it. And land is a burning issue here. And if there's an explanation, we must explain, it must get explained to us in Parliament. Before we sign the document, before we commit to paying, which, by the way, we've already extended. In other words, what we're showing is we've got no chance of paying. Now, my issue with the global deed settlement, it deals with white farmers. It actually deals with white farmers on their development only. It does not deal with the land issue. The white farmers will sit on their title deeds. It does not deal on the biological assets, things like coffee, pecan nuts. Those had a value. So those will all come to bite us. And why I say this, there have been a couple of court cases internationally. The Dutch farmers took us to court, and in the voice of the minister himself, the Minister of Justice told us categorically in Parliament, we lost hands down. Von Petzold took it to court in the States. Again, we lost. The Campbell case closed the SADC officers purely because of the judgment, because they couldn't stomach the reality of the problem. Now, the problem is solvable. That's not the point. The point is we are now talking of committing 3.5 billion. And even if the donors give it to us, they still haven't solved the problem. There are two issues which are of interest here. The first one, which is easy to talk about, is the BIPA and the BIT investments in this country. Those are covered by SI 62 of 2020, I believe, or 2019. That SI states categorically that they can go back. I don't know one that's gone back. 2 years down the line. How can you give back that land first before you've considered solving our problem internally of Zimbabweans? But it's worse than that. Also in 62, we cover the indigenous farmers who can go back to their land. Now, the indigenous farmers, there's nearly 400 of them. Now, the egg here is very simple. What happens to those people who are given the offer letter on those farms? What happens to the development that is no longer there? How does that farmer, that indigenous farmer, go back onto that farm and solve and get credit and start again? How do we move those people with offer letters there? These are all major issues. So the 3.5 billion is the figure. There's no argument about that. But we have all these other issues which we have not even resolved yet. Finally, and probably the most sensitive, which I must be careful how I talk about this, because I'm now talking about the Afrik-Exim bank loan. Because of a court case, the government had to declare the Afrik-Exim bank loan, which they did on the 12th of February. Now, this is typical. We have borrowed money from Afrik-Exim Bank from way before I was a member of Parliament. But obviously it was renewed, rolled over. We don't know because we haven't seen the docs. But what was gazetted on the 12th of February in 168 of 2021, 169 and 170 is 500 million 600 million, and 300 million. So we're now talking of a debt, a formal debt of 1.4 billion, which Parliament has no oversight and does not know what's happening. And I say that categorically for one reason only. The debts were taken in May 2019 and in December 2019 and in December 2019. There is no chance that there's only 60 days from the time that they've gazetted it. We don't know where the money went. We don't know what securities of the loan are. And those should all be with us in Parliament so we know what we're borrowing and what we're getting ourselves into. So the issues there are 6 that I was talking about of this cloud. If you add up that money, it more than doubles what the Reserve Bank, what was declared as 10.5. In fact, it's closer to 28. Now that is the debt. That is what has been exposed. If you take the finance adjustment bill, that's been exposed by the Auditor General. And I just want to take a break here and just mention the Auditor General's office is, in my view, purposely underfunded. They have very few cars. They have very few IT. Their staff is totally poached as soon as they train because of the wage. And yet they do a fantastic job. Their office is appalling. And if you look at the contributions or the money that was paid out to various ministries by the admission and from a document from the Ministry of Finance, you will struggle to find a ministry that was paid more than 30% halfway through the year. That incapacitates everyone, more so the Auditor General. Because don't forget, when an Auditor General does her sums and does her audit, we get it in 2020 or 2021 for the year ending 2019, because it takes her a year to audit. So we're already lagging behind. But when we're talking of figures that are blatant from 2015 and nothing's been done, we've got a problem. So that is the dark cloud, but we've got some gray clouds on the horizon as well. Now, the gray clouds are a warning because it is exactly what has happened, and we're already there with the Auditor General tackling a lot of these things. But in the silver and the gray cloud lining, we've got a problem. When we talk of the Justice Uchenna report, the Justice Uchenna report was delivered to the President in December 2019. Now, the Justice Uchenna report is a fantastic report, I believe, but no one's seen it. Now, my issue with the Justice Uchenna report is very simple. These are losses we're incurring, and we continue to incur, and we do nothing about it. The intrinsic value from his report of land, the intrinsic value of the land is $3 billion that we've lost. He claims that we've got less than 10% of the money of the value of the land. However, the outstanding balance of the land value is $2.977 billion. Now, my question is this. We know this is a problem. It is a burning problem because people in these informal settlements, particularly in Harare, Bulawayo, all over the place, do not have title deed, so they can't borrow. That is the same issue with the land reform. The farmer can't borrow genuinely because he's got no title deed that he can trade. And that has to be sorted when we do the global deed settlement, but same in town. Why do people in town buy a plot of land, build a house on it with no services, and they haven't got title deed? Is that empowering people? So that is a major issue. But the shocking thing on the Justice Uchenna report, in order to supply the services, which was supposed to be supplied by the developer, by local government, by co-ops, by investors, whatever. The missing infrastructure for water, sewerage, and roads is $2.5 billion. And there's only one person who's going to pick up that tab, and that's us, the people of Zimbabwe. So that is a gray area we have, and that report must come out so we can fix it quickly because it's continuing. The other gray areas which I'd just like to mention, and they are, I will just mention them very quickly. Right now, on the auction rate, which is a burning topic, and it was burning yesterday in the pre-budget, But the auction is anywhere between 6 and 14 weeks behind. How much money is that? My estimate can be anywhere between 3 and 500 million. I don't know. But why are we auctioning and taking that long? Because it doesn't hammer the big boys, it hammers the small boys. The guys who have to wait with their money locked up for 3 weeks can't afford it. 6 weeks, can't afford it. The bigger guys at 9 weeks can't afford it. So what do? They take their hiding, they go to the black market. So that is a gray area which is going to come back and bite us. We also have a total silence on the state-owned enterprise on the debt. Now, I know PAC are looking at certain, but you know what? When you consider what the Auditor General has to go through with 92 authorities on local government, about 105 state-owned enterprises, 29 odd ministries, it is impossible to chase everything. And she has to be capacitated because corruption is our biggest issue. So the state enterprise debt is unknown in my view. We also have a gray area on some of our foreign debts coming in. The Chinese debts, yes, Wanky, the airport, Tel One network expansion, poverty alleviation, first education, smallholder, revitalization to 189 million has been declared. But has it been brought in detail to Parliament for us? What have we done for that? What are we giving for that? What is our security? Is it export? Is it concessions? The last and the burning issue, because it's agriculture for me on the grey clouds on the horizon, is this issue of the GMB being a cartel on the 3 main crops of maize, wheat, and cotton. I'll just talk about maize. Maize, we're talking of a crop of 2.4 million tons. If they retain locally 1 million and only sell 1.5 at the new rate of $32,000, we're talking 48 billion. I don't believe we've got 48 billion. So the farmers, yes, I get paid, but I don't know when. But in the meantime, the rate has run that 32,000 at today's rate, because the only way you're going to spend that money is at the parallel rate. So that is a major issue. We know cotton farmers, even from last year, have still got some outstanding problems to be paid. Okay, so those are the 2 areas, and I relate this back to the Auditor General's office. It's no use doing all that work if nothing happens. And it's all right us talking about it, but someone has to do something. So in conclusion, I would just like to mention 2 things. I believe that because of our policies, the exchange rate is beyond redemption. I also believe we have a major problem with our encouragement for domestic production, because domestic production, your goods are being priced, and by the time you get paid, the exchange rate has moved. The second issue is if you're a domestic producer and you're exporting, a portion of your exports will be held at the official rate. And the rest will be tied up in your nostro, and then you're going to have a problem getting it out of there as well. So the issue is for an exporter, his product is being paid at the official exchange rate. The day he walks out of that bank, he's now buying inputs on the parallel rate. So when an importer comes, it's actually better to be an importer because you're going to price everything. And I'll be frank, even if it's on the auction, importers are still pricing goods at the parallel rate. And it doesn't matter what the government do, they will find a way around it. There is no ways you can solve the situation. We've waited too long. And we must remember, my final wrap up is, as far as I'm concerned, our major issue is corruption in this country. If we don't solve the corruption issue, if we don't solve the cartels, we got a problem. And it's not going to go away. And we cannot continue kicking the can down the road. I just want to reiterate, the Auditor General's office has to be capacitated to look at all our problems so that we can then move on and manage them. I'm so pleased that the PAC has broken up into subcommittees to go through the Auditor General's reports because they are vast. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Does everybody hear me?
Yes, can
Thank
hear
you
you,
very
sir.
much, Rusty.
I can hear you.
Very fertile remarks there that traverse the terrain of what's wrong with us. But the Auditor General's report does provide an appropriate vehicle for examining all that's wrong with us. Thank you very much, Rusty. Let us move quickly to the next presentation. Honorable Dube.
Thank you very much, Dr. Makoni. I'm sure the video is coming bad. It's terribly bad. I don't know what is happening, but anyway, I will proceed. The major issues relating to the 2019 Auditor General's report, according to me, in terms of trying to summarize them, with the three sets: the one that must be dealing with the fund appropriation and fund accounts, then the other one dealing with the state-owned enterprises and parastatals and local authorities. And in a brief, I'll just run through those and he explained briefly what the auditor observed there. And also I will quickly indicate that realizing that it was very difficult for the Public Accounts Committee to do these things at once, because by the time I went there, the volume of work was so much and no single report had been tabled in Parliament. Then we decided to actually subdivide our committee into three, so that we are able to actually deal with the volumes of work that are continuously coming. So relating to the appropriation and fund accounts, like Rusty indicated, we have serious issues in terms of our votes, where actually the line ministries are acting outside the law. The first issue in our finding relating to appropriation and fund accounts, it relates to governance issues. On governance issues, we have unauthorized excess expenditure from the ministries. So our ministries are actually exceeding their expenditures without even coming back to Parliament, and the unallocated reserves are transferred by the Treasury to different ministries without actually following proper procedures. And as a result, in 2019, over 508 million was exceeded in the budget, contrary to provisions of Section 305 of the Constitution. Treasury, as a manager of the public purse, did not adhere to the legal provisions on the sanction of excess expenditure by Parliament. So our biggest problem is actually with the Ministry of Finance itself, as the custodian of our resources, our monies. It is actually shocking that they are actually at the forefront of doing things wrongly. We also have issues relating to payroll reconciliations. Treasury Circular B188 dated 5 June 2018 requested directors of finance in line ministries to perform monthly reconciliation of billed amounts by salary services bureau, but this has not been done. So there are serious issues relating to payroll reconciliations. We also have serious challenges relating to appropriation account expenditure variations. The Auditor General noted with concern expenditure variances between the figures reported in the appropriation accounts by the number of ministries and those in the system application program, the computerized system used to process government transactions. The reported expenditures should be in agreement with what is reflecting in the system, but it is not happening. We also have a third challenge of outstanding revenue. In the report of the year ending 2018, the Auditor General highlighted that revenue from as 2009 remained uncollected. The circumvent effect of such non-collection is prejudice in the state. And actually the values here are around 444 million. Also have a challenge of expenditure. The Ministry of Health and Child Care could not avail supporting documents for payments of over 2 million made to other suppliers of goods and services. The payment vouchers did not invoice and since did not confirm the amount. This was contrary to the provisions of the Public Finance and Management Act. So it is not only the Ministry of Health which is in this habit. We also have the Ministry of Home Affairs and
Honorable Dube. Honorable Dube. Honorable Dube. Honorable Dube.
I don't know what happened. Someone had cut me.
All right, you're back.
Brian, are you still here?
Yes, I'm back. I don't know what had happened. I just been booted out. You hear me?
All right, well, I can hear you all right.
Thank you very much. So I was now actually discussing on the issue of the fact that the Ministry of Home Affairs is also one such ministry which is actually in this habit of actually the aspects relating to over expenditures. Then the risk management, a number of ministries not have an updated risk register and no formal risk assessments were done to cover key processes in the year under review. So as a result, like Rusty was indicating, you may not actually know the level of prejudice that you have suffered as a nation because systems and controls are not in place to actually assist you to follow up and monitor. The procurement of goods is still a serious challenge, as indicated in the Auditor General's report. There is non-compliance with the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Act, and ministries are still choosing suppliers without actually following proper and due procedures, and you may not be able then to tell whether government transactions have been done to the best advantage of the government, because in terms of the Constitution, we must be able to perform our transactions economically and to the best interest of the nation. But we have no guarantee because the procurement is not done well, the acquittal of payments made is not properly done, and in the process, you are not even able to know the exact amounts of goods purchased in their values. And you find that in a majority of the ministries, some purchases were done and payments were made in advance contrary to the provisions of the law, but making it worse, those goods have not been delivered. For example, we have motor vehicles from the Ministry of Youth, which were paid for but not delivered. We also have a lot of other ministries that still have undelivered goods. And if you check also, maybe I would also relate with the COVID-19 report on the use of COVID-19 resources. It also confirms these very things of advance payments and non-delivery of goods. So the government is just dishing out money and not receiving goods or services from the suppliers. There is no commitment to actually gender mainstream in government ministries and the programs and policies are not in place to make sure that the requirements of the Constitution are fulfilled. So what I can say, facilitator, is that the Auditor General made recommendations in the previous year, and 356 recommendations were made to ministries. 94 were fully implemented, 88 were partly implemented, and 174 were not implemented at all, which means that the government is unwilling to actually reform and implement the recommendations by the Auditor General as the professional advisor of the government. So that's it relating to the appropriation and fund accounts. And going to state-owned enterprises and parcels, I will not repeat what Malcolm actually said relating to the mystery around those institutions. The overall observations and opinions are that the public finance management laws are not being implemented at all in these ministries. The public entities also suffered seriously as a result of the exchange rates, and the US dollar components being now distorted has also resulted in serious issues and difficulties in tracking the values in those ministries. The Zimbabwe Consolidated Diamond Company and subsidiaries could not account a lot as a result of the fact that their transactions, the majority of them are in US dollars, and the accounting systems are in RTGS dollars. So these are some of the problems that are there in the parastatals, where they transact in Forex, but they are supposed to make their reports and acquittals in bond, not in bond currency. So the consequences of SI 33 of 2019 was probably unforeseen, but its results are devastating. Also, these parastatals have also a problem of late preparation of financial statements. And the bad examples are Zimbabwe, National Museums and Monuments, Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation, Zimpost, and Zimbabwe Youth Council. The general observations are that out of 69 issues raised by the Auditor General, 53 related to areas of governance, principally the payment of fees and allowances to board members without ministerial approvals. This is with NASA, Zimpax, Tobacco Industry Marketing Board, MMCZ, NOIC, ZETDC, NRZ, ZETDC. The board members are failing to declare their personal or financial interests in issues. So you would find that the board members are also maybe suppliers directly or indirectly, and they are not declaring their conflict. This is actually the case with the Petro Trade, Zinara, Zimra, ZEC, ZCDC, Smedico, and Zimbabwe Women's Microfinance Bank. So I would say, relating to these parastatals and state-owned enterprises, we have serious challenges of poor corporate governance, as well as serious leakages of resources and non-declaration, as well as criminal abuse of office, where board members and senior management are actually taking these institutions as their personal investments and actually benefiting more than the government. So in conclusion, there is need for a multi-stakeholder, wide-ranging engagement to come up with real and long-lasting solutions to these problems, which are not only governance problems, but some of them are ethical problems, as well as ignorance problems in some instances. Then lastly, on local authorities, the local authorities have not been spared from the bad practices in the governance structures of Zimbabwe. They are also in serious problems, and they are not only failing to abide by the acts that govern them, like the Urban Councils Act and Rural District Councils Act, but also the procurement laws, as well as the public finance management laws. The local authorities are operating without key documents They have no policies in place to guide how they can do their work, and this has resulted in serious leakages as well as underperformance and failure to properly deliver services. There is also a serious issue of poor revenue collection, accounting and management systems, and this is more visible in the examples that were given by the Auditor General for Gweru City Council, Mutare City Council, Bindura City Municipality, Masvingo City Council, Marondera City Council, to mention but a few. And also the issues of useful and wasteful expenditure is still coming out in these local authorities, mainly in Bindura, Mutare, and Ruwa local board. Improper management of public resources is more pronounced in the city of Masvingo, where a lot of issues were observed by the Auditor General. And one needs not to be told the reason why we are now then having the last challenge that we have in the local authority, which is poor service delivery. Poor service delivery is actually also as a result of the challenges in terms of the current issues as a result of that US dollar and RTGS component that I spoke about, but mainly as a result of poor policies and the systems to collect revenue, as well as poor relating to how to prioritize issues. And this is more visible in Masvingo City Council, Marondera City Council, Bindura Municipality, Egutu, Shirez, Chinoi. So the Auditor General he has made serious observations and recommendations. Council should prepare and implement standard operating procedures, human resources manuals, and also benefit policies to increase uniformity in terms of how these things are done. Councils need to review and strengthen their revenue collection structures as they are in shambles. They must also keep proper inventories and records of assets. There are no known assets, and at times you cannot be able to distinguish between the property of the individuals in some city councils or some municipalities and the individual properties. And in some of the councils, actually, council vehicles are purchased in the names of the directors, which is actually shocking. So this is all I can say, moderator. We are actually in a serious crisis relating to all the three sets of our finance management in the ministries, parastatals, and in local authorities. And a lot needs to be done to make sure that we mitigate this disaster. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Very poignant end line there. A lot needs to be done. May I suggest, as we receive the next two presentations, that both Rusty and Brian put on your thinking caps and take us from the narration and analysis of the problem to, from your vantage point in Parliament, what can we do? Some homework for you there in the next few minutes. Meantime, may I have the pleasure of inviting Janet, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Makoni, for this opportunity. And thank you, SAPES and Transparency International Zimbabwe, for this opportunity that you have given me to speak briefly to the Auditor General's reports. And my interventions were really to look at the local authorities set of the audit reports. But I think the two presenters have really done tremendous work in terms of doing the analysis for the parastatals, for the line ministries themselves, and also for the local authorities. And what has been clear from the analysis that we have done is the Zimbabwe Coalition on Debt and Development is the huge accountability deficit in terms of complying to laws that call for accountability, for transparency, and for oversight that we are talking about. So when you look at the Auditor General's reports and the recommendations, the analysis that we did, it shows that the Auditor General made recommendations, I think 356 recommendations. And of those 356 recommendations that have been made year in, year out, recurring, only 92 have been fully implemented, which is why we are having this huge problem of non-compliance, but of impunity as well. Because when you look at them, the findings of the Auditor General, for me, they border on one, incompetence, actually, by our public service, particularly the high public officials that are not playing their oversight role in terms of managing of public finances. They border on theft, some of them, and corruption, as has been highlighted by Honorable Markham, by Honorable Dube as well. Then the misappropriation, of course, of funds. But the big problem then is on the impunity and lack of compliance and ensuring that we follow up so that the recommendations are implemented by the Auditor General, and where the deeds of the public officials border on criminality, they must actually be handed to the National Prosecuting Authority, who should then do their work. But this has not been done, and we really have to, as we continue to talk about this issue, I think it is high time we think in terms of how do we enforce accountability to ensure that, for example, 356 recommendations, all of them are actually implemented and they don't continue to be recurring. I also wanted to highlight that the Auditor General's reports are echoing the different reports that have come out, either as forensic audits or as commissions reports, and also the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee reports that have been done before. And in Zimbabwe, we suffer one on the issue of transparency in terms of procurement, in terms of contracts. I think this is a big issue that we have not dealt with and that we really have to ensure that we deal with. How do we enhance contract transparency and ensure that our parliament is playing its role, and ensure that the different accountability institutions and structures that are put in different parastatals, local government structures play their role. If it's councillors, if it's audit committees, if it's the different parliamentary portfolio committees, they are able to play their role. So from the different reports that we have seen, the issue of contract transparency remains a big issue. Another issue is the issue of oversight, which has already been spoken about. I think the oversight by accountability institutions like Parliament is not being played or is not being fully implemented. But we also have an issue around information deficits, such that even those that are supposed to play the oversight role, they are also in the dark in terms of exactly what is happening. I think Honorable Markham labored a lot around the debt question, and I will not go into that because he did justice to that. But how does Parliament, for example, play its oversight role when the debt information is not publicly available and there is so much opacity in terms of how we are acquiring our loans and our debts, both at the central government level, but also at the local level, at the local government level as well. So the issue of information around debt or our public funds remains just in the domain of the executive most of the time. When he was talking about the debt, I also, from the analysis that we did, we realized that also local authorities, most of them, we did a snap survey of 20, sampled 20 local authorities after the Auditor General's report. And we realized that most of them have got huge and unsustainable debts. And these are at the domestic level because they are owing to Yozesa, Zinara, Zinwa, Zimra, Tier 1, NASA, they have employment costs that they haven't met, they have pensions that they haven't paid, they owe to the public works, they owe Forestry Commission, Agri-Tax, EMA, national parks, Complex, some of the local authorities as examples. So they also have very huge debts. And these have got an impact on social service delivery that we have to talk about, because when we look then at the social service delivery, we are talking about people's social and economic rights that are provided for in the Constitution, but that are not going to be met. And when they haven't been met, the citizens have to subsidize those public services. So they have to dig boreholes, they have to dig wells, they have to go move on potholed roads, because the councils cannot rehabilitate roads, or the government cannot do so, because then the fiscal space is constricted by the huge public debt that we are seeing. So the citizens will not have the water, the clean water from the council, they will not have refuse collection, public services are affected, and therefore social and economic rights that are provided for in the Constitution and that are primary and form our well-being become impacted on. So we really have a crisis of a humanitarian crisis as we have seen it. We are talking about a humanitarian crisis of 7.7 million people that need humanitarian aid as an example, but we also have a human rights crisis. When we then have typhoid, when we have cholera, when we cannot respond enough or adequately to COVID-19 and the different other crises that we have to face. So this is the impact of what we are seeing in the Auditor General's reports. And it is caused by corruption, by misappropriation, by non-compliance, by institutional dysfunctionality, actually, that we are seeing at the central government level. And then it cascades to the local government level, when then we don't have parliament, we don't have provincial councils as an example that are then doing oversight around devolution funds, ensuring that we get our development priorities right. So this is a huge problem that we have in terms of the human rights crisis, the human rights impact and the humanitarian impacts of what the Auditor General is actually finding. So we see a ballooning huge debt, but deplorable public services that are, the burden is then borne by the women, by the youth, by people that are living in the high density suburbs who cannot respond as individuals and sink boreholes like some people can do. So they have to then depend on community boreholes as an example. They have to depend on unclean and unsafe water sources as examples, and also live with garbage in their backyards, because they do not have the options that a few people in Zimbabwe do have. So we really have this challenge of lack of accountability and impunity, because nothing happens if they don't implement the recommendations, and there are no sanctions to it to ensure that those that are found wanting and with major findings and with qualified audits, they do face the sanctions that have to come with it. And I think the backstops with Parliament, the parliamentary portfolio committees in their different ways and work that they have to do in terms of playing the oversight, even when it comes to the budget performance, quarterly budget performance reports that have to be submitted by the different line ministries and government departments to the different parliamentary portfolio committees, and of course the public accounts committee as well. So this for me is one of those big issues that we have to deal with. I also then wanted to say that when it comes to the issue of non-compliance, when you look at I looked at the auditor, the local authorities audit as well, and realized that we have 92 local authorities in Zimbabwe, but only 23 would say are kind of up to date. So this is also one of those big issues of accountability issues. In 2019, only 2 local authorities submitted their financial statements for 2019. In 2018, only 9 local authorities did so. In 2017, 6 did. In 2016, 6 as well. For 2015, 2 local authorities. And this is out of 92. So how does, council play their oversight role when financial statements are not submitted? And within these, there are also audit committees, but how do they play their oversight role? So it would seem to me that we have audit committees in the different line ministries or internal audit systems that are not functional, that are either non-existent or non-functional or not competent, or benefiting out of the different corruption that is actually taking place at the different governance levels. At my workplace, we always try to do the analogy in terms of the mismanagement of public funds that we see. I think Honorable Duve has already alluded to this finding that there is mismanagement of funds, and say mismanagement will be the virus that is actually harming our economic development, the enjoyment of our social, economic, environmental rights, and public service delivery. So it destroys the social contract that we have with our government at different levels. So we have this virus of mismanagement, and we believe that the immune system that must dictate this is a strong public finance system by government, which is through an audit system. So this immune system would therefore detect, resist, and weed out this virus of mismanagement. But this is not happening. So it has become a pandemic, if we look at it in the context that we are in. And we have to find ways of dealing with this pandemic of non-compliance, of mismanagement. And this has to come from, of course, strengthening the accountability institutions, as Honorable Markham and Honorable Dube have spoken about. But I also want to bring in the idea that I think in Zimbabwe, we really need citizens. It is high time, I think I've said this over and over again, that sometimes I feel like we need less of politicians and more of the citizens. And when I'm talking about citizens, I'm talking about that agency that is able to hold accountable and to ask the different accountability questions from the citizens' perspective. I think when we look at the Auditor General's reports, we are expecting too much from the politicians and from the politics of the day, and leaving out the citizens to be asking the critical questions and stimulating that agency. Because at the end of the day, it is us who are mostly affected by what is happening within the public domain in the public finance management system. So I would want to believe that it is high time that we begin to talk to citizens, to engage. There is no harm in us supporting citizens to go to full council meetings, to go and sit in the parliamentary gallery and hear their parliamentarians, to go to the public hearings by parliamentary portfolio committees, so that they are able to take up some of these issues. And I think a tracker of the Auditor General's recommendations is important at this particular point in time, so that the citizens are aware of all the recommendations that have been made by the Auditor General, and we are able to track them and continue to close the information gap that currently prevails. So we have an information diet deficiency, where information is always answering to the what. So we get all the what and the good stuff that is being done by our government at different levels. But I think we need to continue to poke in the holes to really go deeper in terms of what the Auditor General's reports are bringing out. So for me, I think as we continue to create these spaces, it is time that we come together as civil society organizations, the citizens in the parliament, and capacitate each other, come up with a tracker that's going to track all the recommendations, such that when we are giving a new budget, say for 2022, Parliament is able to ask the questions around the financial adjustment bills, which is a debt, as Honorable Markham has said, the publicly guaranteed debts that are coming as open checks to local authorities and to public institutions, private institutions that are having the government guarantee debts, so that we are able to relate and refer to them, and we have those resolved. And those that require prosecution, they also go through the same. So I would say that this is where we are. Otherwise, I think what we are noting is that we'll end up with this advocacy fatigue, where we'll continue to talk, but without responses that are very incisive and that are action-oriented. Will become fatigued by continuing to see recurring issues, and our lives and livelihoods continue to deteriorate when we do have the resources, but they are leaking. They are leaking because of corruption. They are leaking through illicit financial flows. They are leaking through theft and tenderpreneurship at the procurement level, at the execution level, at different levels. And we definitely need to deal with these, and we have to carry with us or be carried by those who are affected the most. So it's to ensure that we have the youth at the forefront, we ensure that we have the women at the forefront in terms of demanding this accountability, because it is their rights that are being affected. It is their rights that are being denied and violated when resources are leaked, and they're only benefiting a few, exacerbating inequalities, by the way. If you remember the World Bank report that we spoke about, which has seen deep inequalities now, this is the reason, because only a few are benefiting out of the resources. If you look at the Auditor General's report, this is the reason, because most and the majority are not benefiting from the public funds. It is only a few that are benefiting through tenderpreneurship, or in the positions that they are sitting in. Abuse of power is one of the key findings as well, I think, of the Auditor General, the abuse of power that we are seeing. So if you look at the findings, as we try and find solutions, as I conclude, it's on the governance front. Over 35% of the findings, they are on governance. They have to do with governance. So we have to do with the governance and leadership issues. So this is about the boards, this is about policies, this is about systems and policies and structures being put in place around the governance. So about 35% of the findings, if you look at them, they are actually governance related. Then, of course, the revenue collection, employment, procurement, and the like, they are around 25% or so that we have to deal with. So as we try and come up with solutions, our solution lies in governance. So we have to address the governance side of things. And when we address that, revenue collection is going to improve. The employment conditions for the employees is going to improve. Procurement is going to, everything will fall into place. So I think we need to be talking about governance. And as we talk about the governance, in very last words, we have then to put at the center the issue of the citizens and the communities that we are working with, so that, because they are the ones who bear the brunt in all this. So I think I'll end there and hand over back to you, moderator.
Thank you, Janet. Passionate plea there for citizen agency, for a tracker on the recommendations, and more passion on active engagement. Thank you very much. We'll take Tafadzwa as our last panelist. And just to remind us, after the analysis and information sharing, let's apply our minds to how can we solve the problems and with who. Tafadzwa, over to you.
Thank you very much, Doc, for giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you very much to the Director for SAPES, honorable members of Parliament, and my colleague Janet for the elaborate presentations. And of course, as the last speaker, I think my task is quite easier, but I just want to emphasize that for us as Transparency International Zimbabwe, our major concern, looking at all the audit reports, are issues to do with the recurrence of irregularities in all the reports. the issues that are emanating from the reports are the same issues that we were getting as far back as 2013, 2014. And of course, the non-implementation of the Auditor General's recommendations. And I think for us, it's something that worries us. And most of the recommendations, like what Janet has said and the honorable members, is towards ensuring that the recommendations of the OAG are actually implemented. I also want to mention that the 2019 Auditor General's report came almost a year after the date that it was supposed to come out. And that is in April, yet it was supposed to come out in June 2020. And of course, reasons for the delay are attributed to COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, we do understand that, but then there's also another issue around the comprehensiveness of the reports. The reports are not as comprehensive as they used to be. Of course, in terms of individual ministries, they did not look into detail in terms of the reports, maybe simply because there was limited movement and interaction between the OAG's report and the government ministries, local authorities, and parastatals. Then the other issue is that concerns local authorities. I think I'll just mention my concern around local authorities, which has been well presented by the previous speakers. What I've noted is the fact that there are no audit reports for Harare and Bulawayo, which are the major cities in Zimbabwe. And of course, it's an issue to worry about when such cities are failing to submit reports. The last was the 2018 Auditor General's report, where Harare City Council submitted audit reports for 2017. Bulawayo submitted for 2013 and 14. So I think we need to reflect in terms of our major cities vis-a-vis the corruption that happens in these particular cities. So I want to go back to the main report for appropriation accounts or government ministries to mention that only 16% in terms of audit opinions, 16% were classified as unqualified reports without material issues. And of course, we have unqualified reports, 42% with material issues, and about 42% again constitutes qualified audit opinions, which means that the audit reports are quite daring. And of course, there's need for the government departments and ministries to actually up their game in terms of following the rules, regulations, and statutes as provided by our different legal frameworks. Just putting this into context, I've heard about the specific numbers of recommendations that have been implemented, but I just thought I should put this into percentages so that people can actually relate. And so based on this, only 26% of the Auditor General's reports were implemented. And of course, if you go back to O level, when we talk about 26%, we are talking about ungraded. So this is a very poor performance by all the government ministries and departments. Only 25% were partially implemented, and 49% were not implemented at all. So I just wanted to put that into context in respect of how the recommendations were implemented in terms of percentages. And of course, I don't want to repeat what the honorable members have said earlier on with regard to governance issues that emanated from the report, specifically on unauthorized excess expenditure. You know, the government ministries are supposed to seek approvals from Parliament in terms of excess expenditures, but government departments, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Zim Treasury itself is actually embarking on unauthorized excess expenditures, which are over and above even the approved budget itself. So when the Ministry of Finance which is supposed to be leading in terms of coming up with guidelines on compliance and enforcement, is actually also lagging behind. It leaves a lot to be desired. And the issue of excess expenditures actually happening across government ministries, departments, local authorities, and also state-owned enterprises. This also is coupled with unsupported expenditures, where expenditures take place, but there are no supporting documents in the form of receipts and invoices to show that indeed a payment was made. And of course, one ministry, which is the Ministry of Health and Child Care, failed to avail documents for payments worth $2.9 billion to various suppliers and of goods and services. So this is actually in contravention of Section 81 of the Public Finance Management Act. Janet has spoken about it, where, of course, we do have the legal frameworks, but they are not being implemented. And the major concern is that these are some of the issues that are emanating on an annual basis. And this remains an issue of concern for us. And of course, where there are unsupported expenditures, there are most likely to be high risks of corruption, high risks of collusion between the service provider and government departments, prejudicing the government of the much needed resources. And of course, we then link this to the achievement of social and economic rights to the citizens. And this is something that the government needs to address. Of course, I will also talk about issues of audit committees, which the Honorable Dube has mentioned, where audit committees are supposed to ensure that there is ongoing auditing of the books of accounts in ministries where recommendations are made, and the same committee is then responsible for ensuring that the recommendations are being implemented. So in most government departments, the committees were not there. Where they were there, they were not actually functional, to the extent that the government ministries and departments just left the irregularities to go on without anything being done. Then in terms of acquittals of payments, where the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education made disbursements to provincial offices amounting to about $14.5 billion. But of course, they failed to get documents in respect of probably procurement committee meetings, minutes that have been recorded, competitive quotations, requisitions, invoices. So there are no documents that verify that indeed something like that happened. And this is happening across government departments as well. And of course, the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Recreation, they bought cars in 2017, valued at $617,000. And these vehicles have not been delivered to the ministry. And nothing is being done in terms of the recommendations because they've emanated in previous reports. And of course, the ministry deliberately is not taking any action. Then there's also a major concern around budget credibility. Budget credibility entails a situation where there's a budget allocation to a specific ministry, but then by the end of the implementation year, the resources are not dispersed to the government ministries. One particular case is a case where resources amounting to $155 million were allocated for the procurement of ambulances in major referral hospitals, buying of equipment, and refurbishment of these health institutions. Out of 155 million Zimbabwean dollars, Treasury only released 2 million, which constitutes about 1% of the approved budget. So this is something that as civil society, we should keep watching for, because sometimes we celebrate the allocations, but then when it comes to disbursements, they are quite low, to the extent that the goods and services are not made available to citizens. And of course, for us, we know that the poor and vulnerable who are actually supposed to benefit from the provision of public services are not actually having those benefits. Then in terms of long outstanding government revenue, the government is supposed to receive revenue either in the form of levies, in terms of fees, in terms of rents, in terms of surcharges, and the government is not collecting such revenue, which amounts to $445 million. So there are not deliberate efforts by government ministries, several ministries, public service, labor and social welfare, lands, mines, local government, primary and secondary, energy, youth and recreation. They are not collecting revenues. So where we complain about unavailability of resources, for me, I would rather think that the government is not doing enough in terms of collection of that revenue, which of course affects in terms of implementation, achievement of human rights, and broadly the achievement of sustainable development goals for the country, and of course the medium and long-term plans for the country. And also what was quite daring for me in the main report was the fact that the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission did not submit financials for audit purposes for both 2018 and 2019. For me, then, the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission does not have a moral obligation to then question in terms of irregularities that are happening in other government departments. The same applies to the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. There were no audits that were submitted or audit reports that were submitted for analysis. And it's something that worries us quite a lot, especially as Transparency International Zimbabwe. We do work closely with the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, but the fact that they also don't submit their audit reports brings a lot of questions in terms of their integrity as well as an institution. Then in terms of, just a moment, I need to drop the call. Sorry about that. Of course, the Parliament of Zimbabwe, I just want to mention this, that there were no serial numbers for about 11,400 liters of diesel and 11,200 liters of petrol that were disbursed to chief whips in 2019. So we are talking about 11,400 plus 11,200 only disbursed to chief whips. And look at the quantum, but at the same time, there were no serial numbers in terms of the coupons that were actually disbursed to them. And this will actually compromise in terms of accountability for public resources, especially at the institution that we expect to be highly valued. Then with regard to public service, labor and social welfare, for several years, this ministry has been failing to disburse resources to the beneficiaries. And they could only incur costs associated with interbank charges amounting to $414 instead of the 57,000 that have been disbursed, that were supposed to be utilized and is being disbursed already to the ministry. So some of the vulnerable groups that we have in our societies, it's not because the government does not have resources, but resources are made available, but then the ministry does not disperse the resources until 30th of December, where all ministries are supposed to return all the money back to the Ministry of Finance. Then there was also excess expenditure in the Ministry of Defense, and of course, excess expenditure is cutting across government, different government departments. So I just want to also go to the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, which is outstanding advances for foreign travels amounting to about 5,948, where people travel, get their money, but they fail to come back and do acquittals. And this is outstanding for more than 2 years, and the ministry is not doing anything to recover the money. The same goes to furniture amounting to over 160,000 without obtaining any competitive quotations. So the Public Procurement and Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe has specific provisions for public procurement, but they're not being adhered to. And this is a cause for concern across government departments. I don't want to keep talking about the inefficiencies, but I also want to just go to the Council of Chiefs. I think Council of Chiefs, they are familiar and famous for the purchase of vehicles. So they did not follow any procurement guidelines and procedures to the extent that they procured vehicles, 4 of them, at a cost that exceeded the authorized amount by $297,000 US. So just look at the figure. We're talking about four vehicles for chiefs, which were bought, and the amount exceeded the market value by $297,000. Just imagine how much those vehicles were purchased for. And it's something that keeps on cropping across government departments. I just quickly go to my recommendations. Janet has done justice to them. But just to mention that there's need for consistency in terms of implementation of OAG's report. And I've mentioned this before, that the Westminster approach that we use in Zimbabwe, where the audit office is only responsible for conducting the audit and pass on the report to the ministry for presentation before Parliament. And of course, recommendations being implemented by different anti-corruption institutions. But I do believe that the audit office should actually be empowered to have powers beyond just doing the audit, but also following up on the recommendations and ensuring that those recommendations are actually being implemented. And of course, there's need for coordination amongst anti-corruption institutions. The audit office does its job. Parliament calls people to answer for questions, and thereafter an issue is passed on to the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, which sometimes does not do the investigations. If done, sometimes when the issues are passed on to the National Prosecuting Authority, then the issues are not taken to courts, and they keep issues on the roll without actually ensuring that justice is delivered. So there's need for coordination and collaboration among these institutions. And of course, the government, I think in the recent months, they've been shrinking civic and political space for citizens to come together and hold the government to account. You know, it's for the common good that citizens should come together, but of course, through the different letters, statutory instruments, and acts of Parliament, they're actually thwarting the efforts of civil society. And the major recommendation is that the government should open up spaces for civil society to do their work. And my final recommendations are with regard to civil society organizations in ensuring that they do their representative role, where they do an analysis of the report, demystify the information, and also pass on the reports or analysis in vernacular languages where citizens are able to understand and follow up on the recommendations, especially those that are implemented by the local authorities in pursuit of the devolution agenda that is being implemented. And of course, continue with our oversight in terms of revenues, education, raising awareness, and also creating spaces for dialogue like this, where government officials, members of Parliament come together and agree on common positions in terms of the way forward. I think I'll end here and hand over back to our moderator. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tafadzwa. Very interesting observation about ZAC. Begs the question that normally arises of who guards the guards or who guards the policemen. Thank you all for a few panelists for very incisive analysis and some challenging recommendations. We now in the time for discussion. It's not very extensive, but I'm sure if we keep our comments or questions very short and precise, we will cover ground. Let me again underline that we try and find solutions to the problems of impunity, problems of lack of governance, problems of lack of care, really, for husbanding public resources. Kindly, those of you who can indicate that you would like to make a contribution by raising your hands on the reactions panel. There is a facility for raising or lowering your hand. I see Rusty has raised his hand. Being a panelist, let me sit on you for half a minute just so as I can challenge other participants to come up. I see Tony Rila. Please, you have the floor. Go ahead, Tony.
Thank you. I'm going to switch my video off because I look like something from a movie. Thank you very much for all of you for these presentations. I'm echoing Ivo's comments at the beginning that I'm kind of shocked that this critical issue about where does the money go has such low attendance. But what I would really put to the panelists is, can they join the dots? The Auditor General's report is a really critical report. It talks about local leakage, mismanagement, corruption. And I noted yesterday that the Basel Institute for Governance, in its assessment worldwide of money laundering, rated Zimbabwe the 12th most vulnerable country, or the worst country out of 178 countries for corruption and illicit money laundering. So there's a series of things that need to fit together here somehow. The Auditor General's report leaks into money disappears from the fiscus, that's unaccounted. Then we have serious problems with illicit financial flows. That's agreed by the government under the East and Southern African Money Laundering Group's reports. It's amplified by a series of reports that are coming out now on cartels and the links between business and government and money flowing out the country. And all of these speak to some kind of problem that I think Janet raised, and that's about governance. So it seems to me that the heart of the problem here is really about governance. And so we are beginning to talk in the framework of political economy, not just economy, not just how we spend money or don't spend money or account for it or not. We're talking about systems that are failing us. We're talking about whole structures of the state that are not functioning properly. So it seems to me that if you join all the dots, then we are really raising a deep political problem. And that is, we need something called the reform of the state. And that's a big political question right now, and certainly ahead of the coming election. And I would hope that the speakers can join about how these issues are going to be fundamental to any kind of election process and to the platforms that parties will adopt about how they're going to reform the state and the problems that are inherent in the Auditor General's report, and not be talking about whether we're going to have high-speed railways or a middle economy by such and such a time, but actually how they are going to fix the problems that emanate out of the Auditor General's problem and flow out through all of these things: illicit financial flows, cartels, corruption, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. I see Tabeth. Could I challenge more of us to please participate, particularly in indicating the solutions? Tabeth Ndoro, thank you. Tabeth, are you there?
Hello.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'd like to thank the. Can you hear me, please?
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear you. I can also see you as well as hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to thank the presenters for the very powerful presentations. I am just wondering, as a citizen, how can we strengthen the accountability institutions? I think this is very, very important. I know Janet mentioned this. Is it possible, actually, for citizens to approve the appointment of some of these people in senior positions, especially the critical positions? You find that some of the people are appointed to these critical positions when they are not qualified in those positions. I think something should be done so that citizens can approve the appointment. Like in the past, you know, someone would be appointed Minister of Finance when that person is not even an economist. So honestly, how can we expect good results when we have some people who are not qualified? And you can't challenge some of these people because they are politicians. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Lovemore Kadenge. Please, you have the floor. Lovemore, are you there? Hello, Lovemore, are you there? Lovemore is not connected.
Yes, I am.
All right, welcome.
You're fine. Thanks, Dr. Makon. Thank you very much for very good presentations. I noticed that from the various presentations, including by Janet Joe, where we are saying reasons for the failure, for the problems we face, are incompetence, there is theft, there is corruption. Honorable Dube spoke of ignorance. But I think at the end of the day, Zimbabwe prides itself of having an educated labor force. And I am a member of an organization called the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators. And I know there are other institutions like Institute of Chartered Accountants and CIMA. And their being there is to train people to run organizations properly. And I'm wondering, my question is to the various, especially members of parliament and others, where we are seeing deficit in leadership in issues of governance. Why don't we use some of these institutions or take advantage of them and their members? Because their training is to make sure that the organizations are run properly. So maybe my issue is there is a need of political will, because these issues are raised every now and again. The auditor raises a number of these issues, but we have people who are qualified who can do these jobs. And we need political will in terms of employing people who are qualified. And also, like what Janet mentioned, and some other mentioned, that this issue of impunity, because if issues are raised that things are not being run properly, there is theft, there is corruption, there must be a penalty. But when people are not penalized for stealing, for corruption, like what Honorable Markham was talking about. They will continue doing these things. So I think collectively, as civic society, like what Janet was saying, the citizens must take this issue up and make sure that we are in charge of the process. Otherwise, we'll continue complaining. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lovemore. Call for more citizen agency. Before I pass the floor on to Rusty, let me just indicate the balance of our time. When Rusty finishes, I would like him to combine it with his own concluding remarks, and then we will take not more than 3 minutes from each panelist in concluding remarks, and then I will have a few observations to make before Ibo thanks us all for being here with him. Rusty, over to you.
Thank you, Simba. I'll cover it all as closing remarks, really. In answer to your question, I believe that there should be better coordination, literally to a meeting a month between the Auditor General's Office, the NPA, the Parliamentary Accounts Committee, and ZAC. Because it's no use finding all the problems and leaving them smoking there. We should get ZAC involved, and they must get onto it. And I love the last speaker's question. And the bottom line is, when you got unaccountability and you've got non-transparency, it leads to corruption and cartels. And these things can only survive, and I'll say this time and time again, they can only survive with political cover. Otherwise, it would never happen. With political cover, you can do what you want and you know you are safe. And when I say this, we should be looking at the Governor of the Reserve Bank. We should be looking at the Speaker of Parliament and saying, why aren't ministers attending question time? It's contempt. And we are in this downward spiral of saying it. And so that, in my immediate thing, is we could solve that quite quickly by doing that, by saying, guys, you've got to be in the party. I'd just like to comment on a lot of things that Janet said in my wrap up, and Tafadzwa. I've got 3 things here. All corruption at local government occurs in 3 or 4 places: the allocation of stands, employment of people, procurement, and the planning stroke lands person. The issue of massive debts are left out purposely, because I promise you, if we go down this, we need another complete thing on local government. The debts are massive at local government, and there is no chance we can get any service delivery. That I assure you. I'll give you one example. City of Rari paid for a whole lot of waste management trucks. I think it was 13, and only half were delivered. 2 years ago, $3 million is outstanding, and no one's done anything about it. I have here as a slogan, always ask the question, and if you want it done, do it yourself, because it's not going to happen. One solution I have for local government is very simple. Any local government committee meeting and any full council meeting, the minutes should automatically be sent to all the residents' associations involved, because therein lies all the information you need. And they will not do it. I've been pushing that for 5 years. They will not do it for the simple reason is they're covering up what they do. And the second issue I have on local government, every single internal audit done at local government level, including what they term now special reports, should automatically be sent to the Auditor General's office. I thank you.
Thank you, Rusty. Very precise. Brian, I see your hand is up. Combine what you would like to say with your hand up and your concluding remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My reaction to the questions is actually that I think our main challenge relates to the culture that the country has, the culture of impunity, as well as lack of clear ideology and what I can call an economic development strategy or plan, which is why ministries at times seem to be confused in terms of what is it that they are supposed to be doing. But by and large, the aspect of also not knowing what they are doing in the offices is also as a result of nepotism and corruption. But I can confirm to the person that was speaking that in parastatals and local authorities, actually, it was confirmed that there are a lot of people who do not know what they are doing. So it is true, despite the allegations that we are an educated nation, there are people in places who do not even know what they are doing. But I can also then say, by way of recommendation, what we have done as Public Accounts Committee is that in the subcommittees that we have now said, the members of ZAC, already the Auditor General is part of that committee, but members of ZAC have now been invited to come and be observers and listen, so that when issues arise where we need immediate action, we may actually call for that to be done. So I can actually say we have been proactive as Parliament, but we can only do so much. A majority of the things then will fall at other levels. Like, for example, you are the MP, you will not be the arresting person, neither will you be the prosecutor or the judge. So even if you are convinced that something wrong was done, it is dependent upon the competencies of the National Prosecuting Authorities Act, as well as the judiciary, to convict or acquit individuals. So the MPs have already pointed issues. I've seen Honorable Makam has said a lot of things, Honorable Mliswa, myself, I think a lot of other MPs have always been saying a lot of these issues, but that's the oversight role that MPs do. They are not the ones that have powers to arrest and prosecute people or then try them. So the other institutions must also play their role. That's the main challenge, Dr. Makon. I'll end here for purposes of time.
Thank you very much, Brian. Re-emphasizing the importance of coordination and cooperation among various agencies, but also underlining the big problem of impunity. Thank you. Janet, your
Yes,
3 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Makoni. So in my concluding remarks, I think we really have to deal with the issue of impunity and lack of accountability. And in doing this, I think I have about 4 issues that we need to address. One, it's the issue of optics. In our advocacy, who is asking the critical questions, I think is really key. Who is at the forefront? Who are we putting at the forefront and expecting to be asking the questions? I think is a critical question as I will put in quotes, politicize the Auditor General's reports is very important. So the optics around putting the human face to what this bleeding of public funds and squandering of public resources is doing should be visualized at the very, community level or grassroots level. We should also be able to pick from the optics and put those who are actually vandalizing these resources and squandering the resources, so that we really understand, the political economy and the root causes of our problems. If we are to have a common sustainable future that has got systems in place that safeguard our resources. Honorable Dube has spoken on the second issue I wanted to speak to, which is the issue of our ideology and ideological grounding in terms of the economic model that we want to pursue as a country. I think that will allow us to think about the different sectors of our society who are affected and how we want the economy and the responses that we make when it comes to public funds, public finance management is to then be at the center. I want to think that if we do have that kind of an ideology, it will give us stronger oversight by those that have the mandate to play the oversight role, because it ceases to be a personal issue to being a societal social contract issue that we have to deal with and grapple with and ensure that those who have the mandate are accountable and are willing to be under public scrutiny for the resources that they are stewards for. The third issue is on understanding our statecraft. I think we have such a difficult statecraft in Zimbabwe, where I think the cartel issue has been spoken about, which almost operates as a parallel government. So we need to understand our statecraft so that our advocacy is also pointed, very deliberate in terms of where we want it to get to. I think it's high time we move from the omnibus kind of advocacy. We just say we are working with Parliament. We want to strengthen the role of Parliament, but we need still to disaggregate that Parliament and say who is sitting where in Parliament, who has got what power, you know, the power dynamics around, you know, our political sphere and the different arms of government, and see how we penetrate and capture those that we can work with and have allies in our advocacy. So I think it's high time that we really understand that statecraft and we unscramble it so that our advocacy is really pointed if we are to get results and make use actually and optimize and maximize on the findings of the Auditor General. How are they taken up? Either do we have the public prosecutor? Do we want to go to the Human Rights Commission with some of them that we believe have prejudiced human rights? Do we want to go to the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission? But they all have issues. So we need to really deal with our statecraft. I think that is one of the big issues that I would want to put on the table. The last issue is on the language. We need to deal with our issue of the language. I struggle when we're talking about the Auditor General's reports and whether my mother can understand these findings, is to make sure that we speak in very simple languages or language for them to really understand and be able to hold accountable, because we're talking about raising the citizens' agency here. So when we are talking about misappropriation of funds or corruption or whatever, I want to go with, let's go and say your MP or your minister, that one of your stole money last year. And this is how they stole the money. And we explain to them, we simplify these documents and the jargon and the accounts and the economics that we are talking about, and so that it is relatable with their day-to-day lived realities. They can really tell why their garbage is not being collected, why they don't have water, why they don't have health facilities, why they don't have education, and their children are just playing on the roads if it's locked down. And we can use, you know, the Auditor General's reports as a basis for those conversations. So for me, I think we want to take these conversations to the streets, to the people, and the language has to be made in such a way that the people that we want to target, if we want to change the optics as well of our advocacy, the language is a big issue that we have to deal with. I think language remains a hindrance for us to build strong citizens agency. And I will put it there that as a follow-on and as we continue to go on with this work, we have to reflect on how we've used language to exclude others, to exclude the most of the citizens that are affected who could be part of this big conversation that we are having. We have used language to exclude others, and we should be turning that around and ensure that we use language that is more inclusive, that we ensure that we build a broad social movement for these issues. Thank you very much, Dr. Makoni. I hand back the mic to you.
Thank you, Janet. Very important pointers. Let's deal with the optics. Let's make it visual. Let's have a visual impact. Let's review our national ideology so as we can deal with things that affect the people in their everyday lives. And let's be pointed or targeted in our advocacy, not make it too general and too broad so as it has impact. Finally, let's use language that enables everybody to understand what we're talking about. Tafadla, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Doc. For me, my concluding remarks are such that I don't think we have a problem of non-availability of resources in the country, which necessitates the government to either borrow more money or allocate more resources. But I think for me, it's about failure to manage our own resources. So this cuts across in terms of the public resources that are already in the national purse. It also extends to our natural resources. We have a challenge of managing our own resources. This is associated with lack of transparency and accountability in the way the government operates. So I just thought I should emphasize that our efforts as civil society organizations, as members of parliament, should actually be focused on ensuring that we reduce the resource leakages, not the leakages that emanate from the investments, non-payment of taxes, but rather leakages that emanate from the national purse itself. Then I also want to mention that public procurement is highly becoming a conduit for corruption, where people that are politically connected do benefit immensely from this form of corruption in public procurement. And of course, we have made demands in terms of information with regard to the beneficial owners of the companies that are regularly benefiting from the contracts with the government. But of course, the government is deliberately not releasing that information because of the political connections that do exist. And of course, this also takes us to the issue around political integrity itself as we approach 2023, both for local and also national elections. We need to reflect as we go on how are we going to handle issues of political integrity, how companies and individuals can contribute to the election process in the form of resources and issues, what constitutes vote buying, what constitutes the contributions that we have. So we need to reflect on this, emanating from the findings of the Auditor General's reports, where we have seen that most of the companies that donate during elections, actually the ones that benefit more from public procurement and the benefits that comes from there. I also want to say that we need more actors in enforcing recommendations of the Auditor General's report. I always say that we need to make a systematic noise. And I always give an example of mosquitoes. You know, when mosquitoes make a systematic noise, you may ignore them at first, but subsequently you have to take action. So as civil society, as citizens, we need to build that citizen agents, that common voice for advocating for transparency and accountability in our resources. I also concur with Janet when she says we need not to go much on the figures. The figures, of course, are important for accounting purposes, for us to know how much indeed has been lost. But of course, we need to connect the dots in terms of public service delivery, in the attainment of human rights, the resources that have been lost. How do they translate in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of water and sanitation, in terms of housing, In terms of addressing poverty, I think connecting this to the achievement of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, including the achievement of equality between men and women in terms of benefiting from the resources that we do have as a country. I think in my last point speaks to the issue of local authorities, ensuring that citizens are actually empowered to hold the local authorities to account, and ensuring that this particular discourse does not only become topical when the report is out, civil society, when we make noise about it. We need to sustain the discussions even when the budgets are released, when the allocations have been made, when disbursements have been made, to keep talking about the result of the Auditor General's report and keep the government on its feet in terms of ensuring that they implement in an effort to ensure transparency, accountability, and integrity in terms of the government officials. I think these are my last remarks. Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you very much to our host.
Thank you, Tafazwa. A very interesting recommendation there about making the noise like a mosquito have sufficient nuisance value to be noticed. Also, some pointers to key issues about political financing and the capture of state and entrepreneurship, issues that warrant their own sessions for engagement, particularly political financing. Thank you, Tafazwa. Colleagues, this nearly brings us to the end of a very challenging, fertile dialogue. More questions arise than answers, but a number of important pointers to what could be done, all anchored around citizen agency and engaging appropriately with key stakeholders. The key analysis that emerges, though, is an unresponsive state and state machinery that allows total impunity, not just in terms of misapplication of resources and abuse of such resources, but opening opportunities for corruption and even money laundering. I think we have just opened the door to what are really profound questions about the state of Zimbabwe. In one dialogue, we were examining whether Zimbabwe is a failed state or not. When you look at what Mildred Chiri has presented almost every year, and I dare say it's nearly 20 years now since I left the Ministry of Finance, but I know Eric Harrit, who was in Mildred's position when I was Minister of Finance, was posing very similar questions and issues like we are facing now. And so the fundamental question is, over 2 decades, or maybe the whole life of independent Zimbabwe, how is it we can't respond to these issues? That's really a key question that encompasses a lot more sub-questions. Let me thank you very much for according me the honor of moderating our session. I am sorry that I was blinking out from time at the beginning. Thank God my network is now very stable and I have the opportunity to bring our discussion to an end. And in that context, ask Ibo for the last word. Thank you.
Thanks, Simba. Before I thank you and the panelists, I want to acknowledge in this very small but well-defined audience, Crystal Mary, my sister who just arrived from Europe, and my old brother, Sten Rylander. Many of you will know him, from Sweden. Patrick Smith, my brother somewhere in London, I hope. Chris Mkofa in the diaspora, and at home here, my sister Fei Chung, Tabith, and Lamo Kadenge. I'd like to thank the panelists. I mean, you're devastating in your presentations. Rusty, Honorable Dube, Janet, Tafazwa, passionate in your presentations. I can't help but summarize some of the things that Janet had to make. Accountability deficit, and the percentages that Tafazwa gave as to the level of impunity, incompetence, theft and corruption, misappropriation, non-compliance generally. Went on and on, and Simba's own conclusions about the nature of the state of Zimbabwe, as put it. Well, TRZ, we thank you for partnering with us. I just want to make one point which I made in one of the reports that you commissioned me to do on an earlier scandal, the Christmas scandal, where the head of Christmas was, the chair of Christmas was getting something like $500,000 US. Remember, and the board members were getting $100,000 US for board sitting. I made the point that the corruption had become so endemic at that time. It was about 5-6 years ago. And I thought that instead of pillaring people for corruption and so on, why don't we start demanding, Janet and others here, demanding that these people pay back the money. Open an account and you demand that they pay back the money they've stolen, they've taken, they misappropriated, they've abused. I think it's a point that we should take up, not as civil society, but as Zimbabweans in general. We regret very much, but as I pointed out and warned at the opening of this session, that in previous policy dialogues where we have tabled the Auditor General's report, we've always had a very poor response. Happily, thanks to technology, these discussions are recorded. They're on Facebook. They'll be on YouTube by tomorrow. In addition, we have a system at SAPES to transcribe and publish these in the form of policy briefs. And this one we will publish very quickly as a policy brief to be online. You will see the website of SAPES now. We have uploaded, we are in the process of archiving all the stuff we have done since 1987, being archived at SAPES, and the policy briefs become a very veritable record of the discussion we've been having in the last 2 years in particular. So nothing is lost here. We hope that through modern technology, you can reach out and have a follow-up in terms of what should be done. So, Simba, thanks for doing the honorable, as you always do. Thanks very much. And to all of you, until next time, 2 weeks' time, when we meet around some pertinent, as Simba says, the state of Zimbabwe is full of so many problems. There's no shortage of topics through which to peep into the nature of the crisis before us. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, everybody, and stay safe. Mask up. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you. Thank
Be
you. Good
well.
night. Bye.
Good night,
Good
everyone.
night. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Oh, Kata. soki na kati oteka pasi na pasi oyo ya boye ngai na bana mawa nakoka te